Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm Hari, and today we're diving into a story that feels like it belongs in a modern political thriller, but it actually starts in the late 19th century. We're talking about the one and only Luisa Capetillo.
Hi everyone, I'm Kimmy, and Hari, I've been looking forward to this one. Luisa was a powerhouse, a labor organizer, a writer, and a pioneer of what we now call anarcha-feminism. She basically spent her life telling the status quo to take a hike.
She really did. She was literally arrested in Cuba in 1915 just for wearing trousers in public. Can you imagine? If that were the law today, my entire wardrobe would be a crime scene.
Same here. But back then, it was a massive scandal. The police called it immoral. But Luisa wasn't just trying to be a fashion icon. She argued in court that trousers were more hygienic for working women. She actually left the judge speechless and got the charges dropped.
That's the kind of energy she brought to everything. But before we get to the Pantsgate, let's look at where she came from. She was born in Arecibo, Puerto Rico in 1882. Her parents were European immigrants. Her dad was Spanish and her mom was French.
And they weren't exactly traditional. They lived together without being legally married, which was pretty radical for the time. Her father actually taught her to read and write, and she became incredibly well-read, devouring works by people like Peter Kropotkin and John Stuart Mill.
That intellectual foundation was huge. By the time she was 24, she was writing for local newspapers, and her stuff was already heavily influenced by anarchist thought. But her first real taste of the labor struggle was the agricultural strike in Arecibo in 1905.
Right, she was leading marches and literally standing on benches in the plaza reading to striking workers. Imagine the guts that took when the police were threatening to shoot into the crowd. That strike actually won workers a 15 to 30% wage increase.
And it led to one of the coolest jobs in history, the cigar factory reader. In 1906, she became a lectora. These readers would sit on elevated platforms and read literature, news, and political theory to the workers while they rolled cigars.
It's like a live-action podcast before podcasts existed. That role allowed her to radicalize and organize the tobacco workers. She became a leader in the Free Federation of Workers, or FLT, and started publishing her own books like Ensayos Libertarios in 1907.
Her writing was wild for the early 1900s. She advocated for free love, which basically meant that marriage shouldn't be a contract controlled by the state or the church. She saw it as a matter of personal freedom and affection.
She also wrote Mi Opinión, where she discussed sex education and women's history. She believed that motherhood was essential to womanhood, but she also believed women should be totally independent from men. It's a very interesting, nuanced philosophy.
It really is. And she didn't just stay in Puerto Rico. She was a true transnational activist. She moved to New York City in 1912, then to Ybor City, Florida, which was a huge hub for cigar makers.
She even went to Cuba and the Dominican Republic. In the DR, she actually refused to let a local censor read her speech before she gave it. When they barred her from speaking, she just pivoted to raising money for the strikers instead. She was unstoppable.
One detail I found fascinating was her relationship with Manuel Ledesma. He was the son of a wealthy aristocrat. They were lovers and had 2 children together, but they never married. When she got more involved in labor strikes, he actually cut off financial support and took custody of their kids.
That's heartbreaking, and it clearly fueled her writing about the power imbalances between men and women. It's a recurring theme in her work, how the personal is political.
Definitely. Now, later in her life, around 1920, she did something that confused a lot of people. She started campaigning for the Socialist Party. Since she was a hardcore anarchist, and anarchists usually hate voting at elections, this was a big contradiction.
Yeah, her biographer Norma Valle Ferrer calls it an apparent contradiction. We don't really know why she did it, but it might have been a pragmatic move to secure universal suffrage, which she had fought for since the 1908 Workers' Congress.
Tragically, her life was cut short. She contracted tuberculosis during her travels and died in 1922 at just 39 years old. It's amazing how much she packed into those 4 decades.
She was buried in Arecibo, but for a long time she was almost forgotten by mainstream history. It wasn't until the 1990s, when Valle Ferrer's biography came out, that people really started to recognize her as one of Puerto Rico's first and most important feminists.
I love that she's finally getting her flowers. There's even a plaque for her in San Juan now. She was part of what historians call a counter-republic of letters, this network of anarchist writers using the pen as a weapon against oppression.
A weapon and a pair of trousers. She really paved the way for so many people. It's been so great talking about her today, Hari.
It really has. Thanks for joining me for this one, Kimmy. And thanks to everyone for listening.
This episode is based on the Wikipedia article Luisa Capetillo, which is available under the Creative Commons Attribution Share-alike license. This podcast was crafted using artificial intelligence. As a result, it is free of any direct human bias.